Hi, this is Matt Esterman, and today I'm going to be talking about the principle of effective feedback, as has been shown in the literature that I've been able to collect and analyse. The focus of this presentation and of my literature review is what do schools and teachers need to do to ensure that feedback is effective in improving learning outcomes. So surely that's the purpose of feedback, as mentioned by John Hattie. There are four parts really of the presentation today to answer this question. One is feedback. What is feedback? One is what does it mean to be effective? One is what do we mean when we say improving learning outcomes? And the last, what do schools and teachers need to do to ensure this? So that last one is probably the most important, the idea of the practical application of it, because if we can't apply these ideas, these principles, then there's really no point. A quick definition of feedback is information about the gap between the actual level and the reference level of a system parameter which is used to alter the gap in some way. That's from Prasad in 1983. And in other words, in my own words, it's advice, suggestions, instructions from someone to a learner which changes the way the approach to the learning situation in order to move further along towards understanding or mastery. So that's sort of a mixture of Hattie, Prasad, and some other readings that I've found. That's my own words. In terms of being effective and improving learning outcomes, well, we can take it from Hattie. The average effect size is 0.79, which is twice the average effect of all other schooling's effects. And that includes the role of the teacher. I guess feedback is included in that. That includes socioeconomic status, it includes class size and all sorts of other factors. But that's quite a significant effect size. And the teachers are aware of and aim to provide feedback relative to the three important feedback questions. Where am I going? How am I going there? And where to next? That's how we improve learning outcomes. So what do schools and teachers need to do? Well, questions they need to ask are what are the practical implications for teachers who attempt to give feedback? What should they be aware of and what should they aim to do? So let's have a look at some of the readings now and some of the principles that I've identified in those readings. So the principles that I've identified are these five. That feedback must be timely in order to see an immediate impact on student and teacher approach to learning. Students need to adapt their approach to learning based on the feedback given. The teachers need to understand the value of feedback and apply this understanding. The feedback needs to be specific, impartial, and neutral, and honest. And finally, the feedback needs to be fit for purpose. Now, these principles do overlap, they are related to each other, and in some cases may want to be resequenced depending on the context of the school and the teachers. So very briefly, the immediacy of feedback was one of the key areas that the research pointed to. There is some debate about when to give feedback, about whether it is necessary to give students immediate feedback or whether it can be delayed. Most agreed, though, that a significant delay does have an effect on students' perception and also their application and adaptation to the feedback as it's given. But differences need to be accounted for in terms of the type of task, the type of feedback given, and the way students intend to use the feedback. Now, students don't just adapt to survive, hopefully in learning they adapt to flourish, and there is clear evidence that it is the student and the student's role that actually does make or break the application of feedback. And also, though, there is some evidence about a possible disconnect between teacher and student roles in the feedback loop. The perception and preconceptions about an assessment task and about feedback, and even about a teacher, came through as playing a role in student adoption of feedback. And of course, the depth, type, and relevance of the feedback all play a role in the student adaptation once feedback is given. So what do teachers need to do? They need to understand the value of the feedback and apply it. Though teacher agency is clear, there is an impact on the students which depends on the value placed on the feedback by the teacher who gives it, and that consistency and systematic approach is required to be sustainable in any context. Teachers need to be honest, specific, and neutral. So Hattie and others do actually go into quite some detail about this, what kind of tone, what kind of language needs to be used, and teachers need to be aware that this feedback, if valued, can have a significant effect on students. And finally, feedback needs to be fit for purpose. It must take context into account, and even traditional assessment practices and teaching methodologies require feedback to be fit for purpose. So teachers need to be trained in how to give effective feedback to their students, as do students need to be trained in how to use it. Schools need to have consistency and sustainability in their feedback procedures, and not all feedback needs to be or should be done in the same way to achieve learning outcomes desired.